Begin by standing for a moment of silence, and we will follow that up with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then if we could have roll call, please.
Pete Hamill.
Here.
Ken Snyder.
Here.
Brad Hint.
Here.
Tom Eggers. Wayne Barahona.
Here.
All right, the next item up is the approval of the agenda. I'll take a motion for that.
So moved. Support.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Barahona.
Aye.
Hamill.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
All right, we now move into the oath of office for returning Councilman Pete Hamill and Brad Hint, and new councilperson Chantel Ostra. Growing up, it was always ladies first in our household. That was my dad saying. So we're going to start with Chantel. If you'll join me at the podium. All right, I'll ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Chantel Ostra,
I, Chantel Ostra,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold all the laws of the Constitution of the United States,
that I will uphold all the laws of the Constitution of the United States,
the state of Iowa,
the state of Iowa,
and the city of Sheldon.
and the city of Sheldon.
I will faithfully and impartially,
I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office
discharge all the duties of the office
of council member at large for the
Uh.
city of Sheldon,
of council member at large for the city of Sheldon,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law. Thank you.
Forward to work. Got a- All right, we'll do the other ones. We can do it from up there, can't we?
Up to you.
Yeah, let's do it from up there. All right, Brad and Wayne, if you would rise and raise your right hand.
Pete.
Excuse
No,
me,
you're not
Pete.
going to pull that on.
Thought I was getting out. On the line. Pete and Brad, here we go. All right, if you two would stand, please, and raise your right hand, and we'll do this, your name, and then we'll do the rest of it simultaneously. So, I, Pete Hamill.
I, Pete Hamill.
And I, Brad Hint.
I, Brad Hint.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will uphold all the laws
that I will uphold all the laws
of the Constitution of the United States,
of the Constitution of the United States,
the state of Iowa,
State of
State of Iowa,
and the city of Sheldon.
and
the city of Sheldon.
I will faithfully and impartially,
I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office
discharge all the duties of the office
of the councilman for Pete, First Ward,
of the councilman for First Ward,
and Brad
Councilman for the Third Ward
of the city of Sheldon, Iowa,
of the city of Sheldon, Iowa,
Sheldon, Iowa,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Thank you.
we need one up here too. Yep. Done.
And then one more item yet before we move into the rest of this.
I don't.
Wayne, Christmas arrived just a little early. I got a little gift for you. If you would, please. Here, let you have the pleasure of opening it. And then I will read it for the rest of them. This is from the city of Sheldon, presented to Wayne Barahona for 4.5 years of dedicated service by the Sheldon City, on the Sheldon City Council, and dated January of 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Right back at you. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, now we move into the public forum session of our meeting. I think there's going to be a fair amount of discussion regarding the fire department project, the fire building station. We're going to hold those comments until that item comes up on the agenda. Is there any other public comments that anyone would like to make now for items other than that? And I've asked, and there have been no written comments turned in, so we'll get to the rest of you then when we get into the discussion about the fire station. All right, then we have the consent agenda is there for approval. I'll take a motion for that.
So moved.
Support. Take your pick. Roll call, please.
Snyder?
Aye.
Hamel?
Aye.
Hint?
Aye.
Farahona?
Aye.
All right. There is no old business, so then we'll move on to a presentation for the fiscal year 22-23 audit from Williams and Company. Who's here today for that? Hi. Hello again. For the record, please take the mic, get it there, and state your name.
Sherry Titterington.
All right. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Well, my name is Sherry Titterington. I'm from Williams and Company. I'm here to present your FY23 audited financial statement. So first, I just want to say thanks to Angie, Sam, the entire staff for helping us get all the information we needed, answering all of our questions throughout our testing. A few things I'd like to point out regarding the 2023 audit report. Most importantly, we've issued an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. It's what you want to see on the financial statements, and that is in regards to the primary government or the city. The component unit section may look a bit differently than it has in the past few years. In the past, an adverse opinion was issued on those entities, which essentially indicates that those component unit information was not audited and it was not presented. During FY23, the city worked to obtain this information from the component units, While it's not audited, it is presented in with the financial statements this year. It does allow for a disclaimer opinion because it's presented. So it's unaudited, but it's presented. And I understand the plan is to have the component units audited in the future, so that opinion may be updated in future reports. The next item I want to point out is that there was a new accounting standard implemented in FY23. If you remember last year, when we were here presenting, we may have talked about leases a lot. This year, it's software arrangements. We're the same focus. They're very similar. For cash basis statements, the impact is usually in the note disclosures. So while there are many software agreements that we did look at, there's only one that was required to be included in the financial statements this year. Overall, some changes in the financial statements. So the cash balance of the government decreased approximately $200,000. Some additional detail on this change is the cash balances of the governmental funds, such as the general fund, the special revenue funds, capital project funds. As a whole, those had a decrease of approximately $3.2 million. And mainly that was due to purchasing a new aerial fire truck and the capital projects in FY23, which included street improvement projects. The cash balance went from approximately $12.2 million, as of July 1st at the beginning of the year to approximately $9 million as of June 30. Cash balances on the proprietary funds, such as water and sewer, as a whole had an increase of approximately $3 million. That was mainly due to issuing new debt and then the start of the new water tower project expenses. So that brought the total cash balance as of June 30 to approximately $7 million. We did identify one material weakness in internal control. There were 2 journal entries that we identified in our audit. There were no non-compliance issues. FY23 also did bring about a change in our testing that a single audit was required due to the federal funds that were received under the coronavirus state local fiscal recovery. A lot of times you hear this referred to as ARPA funds. This entails looking at the compliance with grant requirements and also the controls over the grant to ensure there are no deficiencies that should be reported. And we had no such deficiencies to report this year on that grant. So that's what you want to see on that as well. Those are the main highlights that I wanted to point out tonight. I guess if you have any questions for me.
Sherry,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry I forgot to ask you this earlier today. I had a citizen ask about accrual versus cash basis.
Sure.
Could you briefly explain that and what the advantages to each are, since it's mentioned in your audit?
Sure. So cash basis statements are strictly the cash activity. Usually they just show cash at the beginning of the year, revenues, expenses or expenditures, and then an ending cash balance. Accrual factors in more of timing issues. So for example, revenues that you may not receive until a future year, those are recorded in the current year activity. It tries to match up when the timing of things happen. So the advantages of both, I mean, it depends on what you're looking at. A lot of times the size of the entity comes into play, and basically what financial fiscal information you're looking for. Is that short enough? Do you have additional questions?
So smaller entities typically use the cash basis.
That is a true statement. That's normally what we see. It tends to be a simple financial statement. A lot of people can relate to it a lot more than the timing factors. You can relate to your checkbook, things going in and out. Yep.
In your letter and then in your statement here, your
Mhm.
disclaimer before we started, you talked about things that it says something about we are not engaged to report on other information which accompanies the financial statements but are not RSI. What's RSI?
So RSI is required supplementary information. So because these are governmental financial statements, there are certain aspects that have to be included in that financial information. That's what RSI
And in your
would be.
experience, is that, do the majority of towns that you do have that kind of a thing or not?
So every government's required to have required supplementary information. Usually that includes a management discussion and analysis, budgetary information.
But do most of them audit or not?
No, none of them is usually audited. It's just more of putting an opinion saying this is in relation to the general financial statements, but most of them do not have an opinion on that required
So that's
supplementary
not really an
information.
impediment to anything?
No. No.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And our information is in there. If there are additional questions later, feel free to reach out. on the letterheads and
Very
such.
good. Thank you, Sherry, for your report and for your work, the timeliness of it. We appreciate that, and,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Okay, we need a motion then to accept the findings of the report from the auditor.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Snyder?
Aye.
Hint?
Aye.
Farahona?
Aye.
Hamel?
Aye.
All right, moving on then to item B under new business. We have a resolution approving the agreement with Beck Engineering for emergency services, capital expansion, planning, and design. So now we'll move into this public comments portion of the meeting that we talked about earlier. Before we go, I got a few instructions for all of you. The public forum is the city council's opportunity to hear your comments at the beginning of the meeting for items specific to this matter. During the public forum, the city council receives comments and refrains from speaking. I may ask the city manager to follow up. The number of speakers will not usually be limited at the public forum, but the total length of the forum is desired to not exceed a half hour. It may be lengthened at the discretion of the mayor and council. Anyone who wishes to speak during the public comment period should do the following. Number one, raise your hand to be recognized, and then come to the podium and state your name and address. If you have handouts, please give them to the council at that time. Be concise, limit comments 4 minutes. And I will time you at 4 minutes. I will ask you to wrap it up. You may not save your time for later or yield the remainder of your time to someone else. And after speaking, please be seated. This one does not apply. Try not to duplicate information that has already been presented. Direct comments to the entire council, not to an individual. Questions and issues raised during this time will generally not be answered during this time. Maintain a courteous and respectful manner. If you are the presenter of an item which has been formally placed on the council agenda, this public process does not apply. So you don't need to worry about that. We're dealing with this only. Iowa law requires certain matters to have public hearings, which have their own comment periods. Comments pertaining to a public hearing item should be saved for that time. Thank you to everyone in the audience for attending this important meeting. So I'd like to open up. Anyone who wishes to address the council at this time, please, if you would raise your hand. Yes, sir. Please step forward. State your name and address.
Mitch Geese, 711 24th Avenue. I've lived in Sheldon since 2011 and have been a youth rec coach and member of the Sheldon EMA for most of that time. I'm here to speak to you today regarding the proposed fire station. Specifically, I'm here to talk about the cost, but probably not the cost you're thinking of. In 1875, Sheldon's early leaders recognized that the town needed more space to grow. Due to that need, they platted out the first addition to the city's footprint. Much like today, the primary needs for a growing community back then were land for commercial development and building lots for new homes. Thankfully, they also recognized an equally important need, public space for community members for gathering and recreation. So they included the large outdoor green space in their plans. This space has remained a public park since that time, and today it is still Sheldon's largest and most robust park, with an ideal location right in the heart of our city. It's still used daily by people of all ages. Children from all around town, including my own, gather there for both free play and city-sponsored activities. It's an amenity that would be impossible to replicate in terms of size or location. Those planning the new fire station will tell you that the ball diamonds at City Park are no longer used and that no one will miss them. That is 100% false. Anyone involved in city rec can tell you that the fields are used nearly every single day and evening during summer rec season and are also used for youth programs at other times during the year. It is already difficult to find field availability for our youth practices with the fields we have. Taking a field away will only compound this issue. No city that is serious about growth would even consider taking away rec opportunities. Lack of leisure time activities is one of the main reasons people move away from small towns like ours. Tearing out and paving over a baseball field, no matter how good the reason, signals to the world that families do not actually come first in Sheldon. Additionally, placing a fire station next door to a park full of children is simply a bad idea that endangers kids. The fire department says that is not a valid concern as their members all drive cautiously 100% of the time. On the other hand, they say they cannot expand their current station because it would be too treacherous for their team to walk across a parking lot where first responders are driving. Which one is it? If it's too dangerous for a grown adult to walk in an area with speeding fire trucks, it's definitely too dangerous for kids. Placing a fire station in a park is a disaster waiting to happen. I'm disappointed and upset that not one person on the city council seemed the least bit concerned about giving away a large portion of our park for what appears to be a poorly conceived plan at best. None of you spoke up and asked questions about how this affects the Parks and Rec Department or paused to think about the negative impact taking away recreational opportunities will have on our town and its residents. Our city leadership can and should do better than that. As I said at the beginning, my biggest concern about the fire station is the cost. The cost of losing a public space that has existed for nearly 150 years. The cost of losing quality of life for our residents, and the cost of the safety of our kids. Monetary costs aside, we simply cannot afford to build this fire station at the proposed location. Thank you.
And thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council at this time?
Marv Van Riesen, Sheldon, Iowa. First off, I want to start off by saying I got to apologize. There's a couple of us that met with the fire department about a year and a half ago or so ago. We'd seen that spot and we brought that spot up. And the intention was maybe to make that smaller and then use that for T-ball. And I went to the park board just recently. I never gave a thought. I should have went to the park board with contact. I got my sincere apology. I apologize to the park board. We didn't mean any harm by doing it. The intentions, I think we're right, but it is what it is. Now we got to move on. And as far as the fire department goes, the building also we brought up, putting up a reasonable building. I talked to a couple of firemen. Colonel was with us, and the original plan was one time putting a one stall on, and then we thought, well, maybe we should build one out there and build a new fire hall and so forth. You know the history to save time. But since then, I have been in contact with the firemen. I've asked for public input. The thing was going to the building committee in the fire department. I've been in contact with Brad. I've never been contacted by them about any public input. Even if it wasn't for me, nobody else was contacted either. Next thing I knew, there was a print in the paper. What they wanted to do, put up a 20,000 square foot building. Now, if you look at the old Baumgart building, that is 16,000 square feet. That is a huge building, and we don't need anything that big. And then I get to find out that they spent $10,000 to pay somebody to draw that thing up. After I had got a price early in the process from a contractor that could probably do something for a couple $1,000. Now, why would you spend $10,000 with Beck Engineering, do the same thing a guy willing to draw spend $2,000 for? Or go out to school, maybe the course out there could have drawn something out for nothing. I think this thing got way out of hand. At one point this summer, was more disappointing to me. When you think of something like this, you should have a way to pay for it. I suggested sales tax. One fireman told me he didn't give a blank how it's paid for. They want it and the city council can figure out how to pay for it. That is the wrong attitude to have, and those are the words, and it wasn't a very good word either, fellas. I would suggest that this thing get put on hold, and we look at putting an addition, one stall, if that's what they need, on the existing fire hall. We're going to build a smaller building. We're going to build a new ambulance garage somewhere. That's going to settle the whole problem. And we do not have to spend $50,000 with one guy in town just because they're in town They just hired an architect not that long ago, we understand it. Why do we have to, we should put this out for bids. That's a lot of money. Do you know what it costs to hire an architect to finish off a building? You're gonna spend about $200,000-300,000. Why would we do that? Our tax dollars come too hard, and then you want to use local option sales tax. We will build a building, we should, with local option sales tax. But I would encourage the council, do not, just put this on ice for the time being. Keep it on the park for sure, I mean, that's for sure. And then put this on ice and let's get some public input. Let's think this through a little bit further. Let's build new ambulance garage, put that addition on there for $300,000, it's a done deal. And I think that's gonna satisfy the public pretty well, the way it seems to me.
15 seconds, Marv.
Okay, that's it. If you have any questions, you can contact me later, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marv. Anyone else like to step forward? Go ahead, Doc. Adjust that mic so you get it close to your mouth so we can hear you. More so that those that are watching can hear.
Honorable Mayor and City Manager, council people, and this great cloud of witnesses behind me.
Please state your name, too.
I know
Doc.
I'm not supposed to address them, but that's all. I'm Ron Zoutendam, Dr. Ron Zoutendam, at present a resident of the Christian Retirement Home, Sheldon, 1414 Elm Court. I'm here for a little bit different reason than the people who have just spoken, and somebody else will address the appropriateness of using the park, et cetera, et cetera. I don't suppose you're surprised to see me here. I learned of your proposal through the newspaper. Got to learn about it somehow or other, right? This concern doesn't have to do with the cost of this proposed or the necessity or the need. As a resident of Sheldon, I know that we need and want the best ambulance, fire, emergency services. And I've practiced medicine here for 45 years, and so I know that we want emergency medicine, emergency services. So this has nothing to do with that part of it. And I'm not talking about nuisance or noise, even though that might be appropriate, might be the consideration for some people. I'm accustomed to the ambulance and or the fire truck and or the police whizzing past my place and making a little bit of noise. That's, I always figure somebody needs help and they're out to provide it. I'm talking mostly about the financial implications for me. Now that may sound as something, a selfish concern, but that's my concern. A number of years ago, we worried about the skate park. And of course, that worry has sort of disappeared partly and maybe even mostly because the skate park's not used like it was, nor is it used for the purpose that it was for a while. Draw your own conclusions. I chose this location to build my house for several reasons, the least of which is that I never thought that the largest and oldest city park would be a place I didn't want to live across the street from. We, my neighbors, and I, until I moved to the Christian Retirement Home, lived in a part of the Sheldon that was designated as a residential area. I'm sure you know that a fire station on that corner of the park would change the neighborhood significantly. And I presume, since I don't live there anymore, that you should know, if you don't already, that my home is for sale. I've serious and well-founded, I think, consideration or concerns that the announcement of this location will significantly decrease the value of my property. Maybe in the big picture, this is of little or no concern, but I'm here because it's of concern to me.
You have 15 seconds
Since-
left, Doc. 15 seconds left. For your 4 minutes, you have 15 seconds left of your 4 minutes.
My hearing's not very good.
Okay, you have 15 seconds left. We all have 4 minutes.
That's not enough, is it? Okay? This announcement, no doubt, will decrease the interest and number of people who might at all be interested in my house. So my value of my property is in limbo until all this is settled. And if it's settled that a fire station is going to be across the street, the value of my home or my property will permanently remain, what's the word? Diminished. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll take him for Vern first. And again, state your name for the record.
Vern Pruin, 1015 Washington Avenue. And I think Mitch and Doxy have pretty much covered most of the things that I wanted to cover, so not wanting to repeat them, I'll make mine brief. I am adamantly opposed to having that fire station there for all the reasons that they mentioned and then some. But I would ask each council member, as you vote on this, to think this thoroughly through, that if you put that there, you are forever changing the picture of our downtown or of our centrally located city park that has been there forever. So think carefully before you do that. I ask that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. Bill, you had your hand up?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bill Nowak. I live in Sheldon at 507 Washington Avenue. I've been here just about all my life. I have been on the fire department. I have been on EMA. Before that, it was civil defense. I was here to resign from it when the mayor back then made a note that whether or not we even needed that. And that was when we were putting the sirens up. Guys and ladies, they're speaking loud. My western roots come from Wyoming. My brother-in-law is native. And he'd tell you, once it's gone, it's gone. And then it'll be this, and then it'll be that. I have been a firefighter, and I appreciate that, 100%. Do we need it? Heck yes. Heck yes. But it's a matter of where. By putting it at the city park, what's next? There's land around this town that's available, but you might have to pay for it. We had to buy farmland, didn't we? We had to buy other things. We have very large residential areas going up, 3 stories, hundreds of people to the east. To the west has been industrial. This town has been divided by the railroad and the highways. It's been marked that way. Study history a little bit. Where's your exposure? Okay? You got the ladder truck because of the 3-story type things, and we needed it. It's not just for getting up their height, but be able to reach into things. To get that thing around those corners that are not 90-degree corners because of how this town was laid out is a son of a gun. I appreciate that. But I've been to way too many other cities, and I travel all over the United States doing safety seminars. So does my son. They don't put all of their equipment in one building. Spencer has at least 2. Sioux Center has at least 2, etc. What's wrong with dividing it up to where we need it? because we have a very large industrial exposure over here, and this is not centrally located. There's only 2 blocks north, this city, with residential and such. There's a mile and a half down the highway. From that highway, 60, the old 60, up to the fire halls proposed, is less than a mile. From the proposed site out to the residential areas is about a mile and a half plus. And regardless how you look at it, you are going to have to run those trucks down residential streets. You have to. If that's where the fire's at, how else are you going to do it, folks? I would ask that this be tabled. I would ask that a committee of people other than emergency services and other than realtors, I got to put my foot in there with that, take a look at where this is going. And I have kudos for Pete, Mr. Hamill. Thank you. You have raised questions over the time. I appreciate that. I think everybody does need to raise questions instead of rubber stamp it. I'm in favor of a new fire hall. You bet I am.
15 seconds,
The 2 of them. 2 of them. Split it up and take a look at the old, what would they say, motel? The old Iron Horse, that area. You got a pretty good sized chunk right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? Yes, sir, step forward.
My name is Wally Waltisen, 311 Washington Avenue. I'll open up another can of worms. Avenue flags. We're approaching 50 years, Avenue of Flags. Putting up close to 850 flags around that whole area. I can't say enough for people that stop by and they enjoy it. They love looking at it. These flags are bought, paid for by veterans families, and it just seems like there would be just kind of, I don't know where we would put them if we have to remove a lot of flags. I just kind of did a total, I don't know exactly where all your boundaries are and stuff, or will be, or whatever, but I came up with 122 flags that will be displaced on 6th Avenue and then down Highway 18. So just something to keep in mind. Our committee is small. We work strictly with volunteers. We have we try to get groups in to come and help us. Like I said, our committee is small. It takes a lot of work to replace flag sockets during the year. They get pulled out, flag poles that get damaged. That is all on us. We replace them at no cost because that's on us. They've already purchased the flag. We take care of it. So just keep that in mind. Avenue of Flags. Coming on 50 years, a lot of veterans. We support our veterans really, really highly. We support them. We'll be putting up other things down the road to support them and show our support for our veterans. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Wally. Kerwin, I see your hand. Do you want to step forward?
My name is Kerwin Sterler, 621 26th Avenue, Sheldon. First of all, I'd like to say, we want to thank the fire department for what they do, and they're an excellent fire department, and I feel they've got some pretty good equipment, but there's always a but. Why does the fire station, what is wrong with the fire station we have, and why can't we add 1 or 2 stalls onto it? We just got done swallowing a big pill on the school edition, and that affects everybody's pocketbooks also. Where, I guess, is the public input in this? I don't understand. We get blindsided with all of a sudden, we're gonna throw up a $4.5 million fire station. Where does that come from? And then another thing is the location. I agree with what Mitch said too. That I would rather sit at that ballpark and watch a game than I would stare into the sun over there at the ones by Hy-Vee. Them ball diamonds are a lot better for viewing the game and so forth. So, and then, yeah, I don't know if this is, I think that's about all I got, so.
Okay. Thank you, Kerwin. Anyone else? Now would be your time. Joanne?
I'm Joanne Investy, and I live at 1107 A Street, and I did not prepare a statement. I didn't plan on talking. But anyway, I don't understand how you can take, on the deed, it says park. How can you take that and cut off part of it for a business, basically, the fire department? My concern at the park, of course, I've been dealing with the flowers at the park for 40 years. I think it's a tremendous thing. You can't imagine how many people come through the park. And and Wally covered the flags. I think that's a great asset to Sheldon. You know, so that's all I have to say. I just think that, for starters, I don't think you really investigated how the park came to be. The land was given to Sheldon in place of where this building stands was owned by someone else. And the city got this land and they gave that land where the park is, which part of it was a swamp, close to the highway was a swamp, and now we're just going to throw that away. And it's the only real park we have. And when you drive into Sheldon and you see those flags when they're up, that is quite a sight. In the past, we've been called the Marigold City. What happened to that? Oh, well, we don't need that. But as I say, my concern at the park is taking care of the flowers and keeping the memorial looking beautiful in the summer, and I've been doing it for 40 years. But I would hate to see that the place where kids can go to be ruined by a building. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Yes, ma'am.
Bev Brower, 220 North 9th Avenue. I'm with Wally. I'm a member of the Flags, and I think it is very, very disrespectful to every one of our veterans to damage the Avenue of Flags. Plus, this is where we have celebration days. It is so packed down there. You walk 5 blocks. You put the fire department down there, it's just going to make it worse. And then what happens to celebration days? Do we get rid of that as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. Anyone else wishing to address the council at this time? Yep.
So my name is Aaron Alonso. I actually live outside of town, but I have a business in town that we pay property taxes. So I have a little bit of skin in the game with this. And I want to just quickly address the fact that what's on the agenda is spending the $50,000 for Bex. What's not on the agenda is, are we going to build it there or not? Am I right? But what's at issue is, if you spend the $50,000 to get it put together, as a council, you get down the road and you say, well, we spent the money. Are we just going to throw that $50,000 away? And I think from what I understand, the idea was, well, that 50,000 we're spending, that's 50,000 we're gonna have to spend no matter where we build, you know. And the question was asked, I believe, to Bex. So if we spend 50,000 to have you think about doing it down here, and we decide not to do it there, can we reuse that information? And the letter that was included in the council packet said no. So I don't think there's anything, I've been on city council. There's nothing more politically dangerous than asking a question when something is up for the fire department budget. It's not wise. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the council saying, no, either we're going to table this or we're just going to shoot it down and we're going to come back together and talk about this. Because I think if you were to poll the citizens, you obviously know it's a bad idea to put it at the city park. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. But just don't spend that 50,000 on Bex. Just, I mean, nothing against Bex, but I don't think you should say, well, we talked about it last meeting, we really kind of approved it. Just don't pass this motion is my recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm not seeing any more hands going up, so I want to thank each and every one of you for coming today, whether you spoke or you just observed and listened. This is city government the way it's supposed to work. We appreciate your comments, your willingness to be here and take the podium and address us, and we will take it under advisement. So at this time, I'm going to close the public session, the public comments portion of it, and then we... Yes, please.
So, thank you, Mayor. I have, I'm not going to read all of the letters into the record. I just want everybody to know they have been linked, and you can find the agenda with these letters linked at sheldoniowa.gov, and it's partway down the home page, and you can click on the agenda for today's meeting, and you can find all the letters. I will just read the names of who submitted letters, and then Angie can note that in the minutes. We received a letter of concern from 6th Avenue neighbors, Marilyn Menning, Sue Mao, Ada Giels, and Mike and Matt Kramer. I'll give these to you, Angie. We received a letter from Corey and Terry Elversma of concern. We received a letter from Donna Enan Rosenbaum of concern. And I have a letter here from Dr. Z, which he already presented. And then we have received a letter from Deb Middle, also of concern. That's all I have.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. We also received a letter from the Parks and Rec Board. I was at that meeting too. So, sorry. That is also linked.
Mayor? All right. Then I would like to move on into the discussion.
I'd like to, concerning Mitch's. Way I took it last week, or last meeting, there was a presentation from the fire station, from firemen, on what to do. We didn't, and I took that, and I've been out talking and doing some research and doing some study, because I had no idea, I couldn't say one way or the other at that point. Plus then talking to different people and their opinions on that. And we are for the people. So we didn't really come down to any conclusion last time. It was their last time, it was their presentation. And then we took that, and well, I took it and came up with the opinions of people, came up with the facts, some of the other facts, some of the pros and cons, and I did my due diligence on that, so I could vote the way that I feel it should be voted. So we didn't ask a lot. I didn't ask any questions because I want to do some research, and I didn't want to step into anything. So and I've done some research, and I have some ideas and opinions at this point, a lot more than I did have. Is that okay?
I guess.
Mayor?
I guess I'm going to extend on what I said at the last meeting, and that's that I'm very strongly in favor of trying to gather more information, a more comprehensive look at emergency services and what our needs might be, and what our potential is. We did get some input, but not nearly enough as far as I'm concerned. I would like to know where we're headed and what our goals are, and to me, I think it's premature to start doing borings and that kind of thing. I think we have the cart ahead of the horse here. With that, I would suggest that we back off from this a little bit and take a breath and try and get a better feeling of where we're headed before we start boring samples and that kind of thing. I would hate to spend that kind of money and then say, oh, well, that's not going to work. Let's go spend it again somewhere else. I don't think we're at a place where we ought to be doing that yet. That's just my feeling.
You want to make a motion?
I think I've never gotten a round of applause like that.
Should that be made into a motion of some kind, Pete? Or is that?
I guess I would be willing to make the motion that we table this and not ignore it, but continue to investigate where we want to be. 10 years from now, what should it look like?
Well, and I would say that there is some merit in having outside independent study being done about not only the needs, but of location and strategic planning as far as how we proceed with spending money as far as the emergency services as a whole, and then more specifically for the fire station. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to, or at least all members, and I'm speaking as a member of the emergency services myself, to make sure that we can provide the best plan in our ability to the city council, but then it's incumbent upon us as a city council to make sure that those directions and that those ideas are in line with what our goals are, and that we are making sure that we're seeing this all through the correct prism, and that is that of making sure that we come up with a responsible plan for not only the city's budget, but for its citizens as a whole. So I'm going to recommend that this plan as it stands be scrapped, and then whether it be with Beck Engineering, whether it be somewhere else, let's utilize those outside resources to make sure we have a plan that's fair and equitable for everyone.
Okay. Any other discussion? You're going to recommend
on the table.
Todd? Is it Todd? Yes, do you want to comment? Yes, please, step forward.
Good evening, Jason with Beck Engineering, and I just want to state that I think it's great that they have this much public input on a project like this. I agree that there might have been some things in front of the cart in front of the horse, per se. I just do want to reiterate, though, that what we've done to date is not so much site-specific, reliant on our thoughts. Part of the study, and I think there was either overlooked or a misunderstanding that this was going to be the site no matter what. What has been presented for the plan certainly has been this specific site, because we had to start, someone had to start somewhere, correct, with the building layout and what property there was. I just wanted to reiterate that some of the scope of the proposal and some of the work to be done as far as the schematic and the preliminary design was evaluating sites and building location and building sizes and building orientation and building layout, certainly with involvement from EMS and the fire station themselves and everyone else involved. Should the site change, the further along that happens, yes, there would be some redo work, but right now, very little, if any, work would be redone as part of that.
Do you have any other sites identified within the scope of your research?
No, not yet, because I guess how it was presented was, here's a site, what would this building look like on this site?
Sure.
And that's where it went from.
Yeah,
Sure.
We asked for we gave you different locations. Would a station of what we were looking for fit on these locations? And this one came to be the best location. So, and that basically, the committee within the departments got started after we had a few meetings about SCAT wanting to expand. Council said, get a committee together, come up with a plan. So that's where we're at today. So, and we just took their information and we just used them to see where that footprint would fit in the Sheldon. We gave them the old motel, stand-aid property, the farmstead by the hospital. We went out east, south of the Lutheran Cemetery. So there was a half dozen locations that were given out, and this worked the best. So that's how we got to this point. This study also includes the ambulance garage, the current fire station, renovation for the police department. So this plan encompasses a whole lot more. It's just not a new fire station. It's the whole package, which we were told by the council to look at emergency services, what your needs were, and that's how we got here. And that came from a couple of closed-door meetings that we had.
But the plan you're drawing up, it would be the same basic cost plan on any location, or do you say it would be drastically different from one to the other?
Our services?
Yeah, what you draw up, it's going to be the same, the
Yeah.
building itself.
No, he's saying that the services they provide are going to be the same, but the plans are going to be very different. They're going to have to be redrafted each time.
Okay.
Yeah, because
At an extra cost.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, no.
No.
The earlier on we can distinguish and determine the site, the better. A good example to Mr. Hamill is, yes, once the soil borings would be done, that's wasted if you move sites. If those are held off until this is going to be the site, then that's the same fee no matter what, and that's done by an independent geotechnical engineering firm anyways. Some of this, as Mr. Hint said, is the old building, as well as looking at sites for the new. Footprint would certainly affect it, as things like that, based on lot size that's available. Part of this preliminary and schematic design, maybe it is some sort of public meeting to gather information, because this has been good feedback tonight. And certainly if it ever got to a point where it was, hey, this is just not going to work, let's, whether we pump the brakes tonight or a few weeks down the road, work stops and that's where it stops.
Right. I think it got a little bit, kind of whipped into a fervor a little bit when we really weren't at that stage of the plan. It was more of a, this is what this plan looks like. But I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that any future dollars that are spent are going to be something that is multifaceted versus a site-specific type idea. Now, you also mentioned that some of the services in regard to evaluation as far as studying the need, that part was included in your memo. Tell me a little bit about that.
That would just be comparing population size, area that's served by the service to other communities in Northwest Iowa of similar size, similar area, similar population, things like that. It would compare facilities that they have, equipment they have, and it would just be a compiled list of here's what the city of Sheldon as a community thinks they need or wants, and here's what a select list of other comparable communities have.
So with that being part of the scope, and I apologize to everyone here that I wasn't here on time, but my understanding is that the community has concerns about the site of the new fire.
Most of the concerns tonight
Okay.
seem to be site-related, yes.
So part of the scope that you're just talking about was added later to your proposal.
It just wasn't clearly defined initially.
Correct.
Yes.
So with that definition, I think that's step one for us and the community to better understand where we're at and where we need to go, what we need to fund. And then step two would be finding the right site, and then 3 would be preparing whatever the cost would be for that site at that point.
Sure,
Would everyone
absolutely.
agree with that?
That's all chronological, makes sense.
So with that, yeah, so what I'm saying is as a council, we need some direction on what the services feel they need to do, and we need to compare it equally to our neighbors and see once how that fits. And if it doesn't fit, then we need to understand why it doesn't fit and why it serves us better as a community for it to fit. So I would hate to see that part of the proposal get stopped tonight, because I think that's ground one activity we need to do. I need that as a councilman for me to make better decisions about all the rest of it.
Absolutely, and as those steps take place, if there's something that comes up where it's...
So can you come up with a proposal just to do that and what that would cost?
We could.
To bring back to the council for us to take action on.
Yeah, that would be an approach. Like I was saying, the other approach is if this were to proceed and was halted at any time, that's where it would stop. So if it were all lumped into this same one and we got 10 or 20% into the study and the schematics and someone said this isn't working, that's where we stop.
So it would be priority one within the scope as you
Absolutely.
have it tonight.
Absolutely.
Okay, before anything else.
Yeah. The last thing we want to kind of follow up with, at least a couple of concerns that came up tonight, was, well, this money was already spent on this site, so we're putting it here whether we want to or not.
Right.
We don't want that. No one wants that. The community doesn't want that. Council
And
doesn't
we
want
didn't
that.
spend that, we spent that money to look at different sites throughout the community.
Absolutely, yes.
So-
So, I mean, there has been some research done. Maybe there's more input needed and more research other sites. I don't know.
Apparently there is.
Yeah,
And that-
obviously there is, I should
And that's good. And that's
some of
fine.
those, Tom, some of those concerns we've discussed in our committee meetings about, the Avenue of Flags, and maybe that could be a sidewalk around if it was built, a sidewalk around that building, and you could put flags along there. So there's different things about the skate park that's been talked about,
But we've only been given one presentation of our need for the fire. I'd like other ideas. Can we do, just out of the sky, don't hold me to this. The SCAT would build a place, I like the idea someone said, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's been discussed here even. But we've only been given one idea, one plan for one thing. I would like to have more discussion, maybe even a step-by-step. Do something now. How do we know what we're going to grow in 5,
Yep.
We need that plan down the road. I've been to, I'll tell you where my experience has been. I've been to thousands of churches, and I've gone to churches that have built, we're going to build this, we need this down the road. Well, it didn't happen. And they've even lost churches, or it put them in debt. Whereas I went to other churches, here, this is one step, and we can expand with that. We do this, and then here's the next step. As the need goes, here's the next step. Little by little, instead of paying $5 million or whatever it's going to be at one step, do this, and then if we expand, we grow, maybe there's a time that we can go to the other side of town. I'd like to have different ideas and different presentations than just one.
Yeah, and I would say, I think what's maybe misconstrued a little bit is we're barely starting step one to date. And as was mentioned, it was, here's what we think we might need as a facility. Here are a few target properties that are either acquirable or already owned. What fits here? And as Mr. Hint said, this was the one where it actually fit on what was available. Are there other properties that could be looked at or purchased? That would be part of this.
And some of us, how we got to this point is, we met with SCAT, EMA, fire, police, and we started talking about a lot of this stuff, what our needs are, what their needs are, and over the last 9 months, this is where we've gotten to. You know, in order to go forward, we need to have professional services to come in and say, you can do this to the fire station, you can't do this to the fire station, you can do this to the basement of the community building for the police department. So it's going to encompass a whole, it's going to be a 3-phase project, you know, our 4-phase project. So we've talked about that interdepartment, and this is where we came up with last meeting. They presented it to us, to you guys and us.
Brad, as I sit here, I'm becoming more and more confused over things. I'm going to back up the date.
Vern, if you would, please step forward so we can get to the mic.
I'm becoming more and more confused as we listen to this. I don't think anybody is arguing about the need. But what we're here about tonight is the location. And I think the council has got to decide that. You're either going to consider the park or you're not going to consider the park. And we think the park should not be considered for this location. There is no way you should destroy that. There has got to be other locations around this community to build this, whether you can build it in one side or you have to have split it, as they say, not all your eggs in one basket. But eliminate the park. I don't hear that even coming up. I mean, we're still talking about spending money on doing this stuff, and quit considering the park. I just think that's a terrible mistake to put that in that park.
All right.
I guess I apologize if it hasn't been clear. That is part of the study, is looking at if this site is the correct site or not.
All right, so I think we're kind of, at a point where before we start digging into the ground, we need to be doing more research.
Agreed.
I think that's...
I guess that's I still have a motion on the table.
That's what basically his motion is.
Can you repeat the motion, please?
The motion was to table this, to back off and try and get more input from whatever source we can, and try and build a more comprehensive look at what we need down the line and how we might approach that. The other thing that nobody talks about here, and that's how are we going to pay for it? Okay? I'd like to know that. And those are just things that we have to learn. One, we need to look at comparisons of, we feel that the guidelines are authentic and that we can move on with those goals that we have so that we have a vision of where we want to be with emergency services 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. How are we going to pay for what we do, and answer some of those questions and explore. With all the pushback we've had, I think we genuinely need to look at some other places to put it, and then come back.
So your motion is to table any action on the proposal that's in front of us tonight, as it's structured?
As it's structured,
Okay.
yes. That's my motion.
And I guess to speak to what I was speaking of, would the council be open to another proposal that's more limited in scope in regards to the study, that would provide some of the answers that you're speaking about, B?
And that's what we need to discuss before we do any voting.
But then we need to have a new proposal that has just that scope.
Right.
And we move on that then.
All right.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a motion. We do not have support at this point.
I'll support it. Yeah.
Ken will support. Okay. You want to read the motion as you have it, make sure that we've got it right?
To table it and continue to investigate. That's how I had it from the first time.
Investigate possibilities and goals.
Yeah, go.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Snyder.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right. We are nearing the end of the meeting.
Thank you for your work, though.
Moving on then into our reports portion of our meeting. Anything for you? Any further comments for you, Sam?
No, sir. Merry Christmas.
Todd, anything from you?
Just that we started flowing, excuse me, we started flowing Lewis and Clark water on Tuesday morning. So, Mayor Gills was able to be there with us, and it was high fives around the room when we turned it on. So, fun day. The guys are working on getting a few kinks out. It'll likely be a week or so before customers really start to see the full effects. There's millions of gallons in the system, in the towers, and in the reservoirs that need to be turned over before we're on specific new blend. But exciting day to Sheldon, and thank you for all those that worked on it long before I came around, because it started in 1990, and I think it's important that we don't forget that.
So I asked Todd the question when I was there, do I turn my my water softener down at this point? And it's kind of, let's give it a week, 10 days yet until the water is through the system. But that was a highlight of being there to see that actually happen. It's something I've looked forward to for a long time. And it was, when that valve opened, I was just giddy.
How about the fish tanks and such? How long?
Yeah, so we are, on Tuesday then, we started the process of chloramination. So if you're a dialysis patient, or if you're a fish owner, you have a different process you'll need to follow to remove chlorine from the system. So I recommend, if you're a dialysis patient, you contact somebody smarter than me, i.e. your doctor. And then fish owner, talk to your pet supplier.
What percent of is going to be of your regular water? Are you blending or what?
We are blending, Kerwin. So we turned the deep wells off. The Dakota deep wells are turned off. They will become emergency backup only. We are utilizing 30% of our shallow well water and 70% of Lewis and Clark water.
Good day.
Well, you have-
Anything else? Oh, go ahead, Brad.
When you're turning the deep wells off, will you run those periodically to keep them?
We're required to, yeah, we will. We're required to, by DNR, if we're going to leave them active, they are required to operate at least monthly. What we haven't determined yet, if we're going to run them to the system in little short spurts so that you won't likely notice, or whether we're going to pump them to waste.
Okay. 'Cause I hate to, one day when we need them and we don't have them.
Yeah, so, exactly. And the oldest of the two will likely be recommended to be closed. It's got some historical issues, but the newer one that we just drilled in 2015, we certainly plan on keeping.
Okay.
Leaving it there as a redundant backup.
Yeah, because I don't want to put all our eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Dakota water that's not very good quality is better than no water.
All right. Is that all you have today?
I'm done.
Great, thank you. Angie, anything from you?
No, thank you.
Anything from you, Micah?
No, thank you.
Anything further from the council to the left?
Nope, thank you, Wayne, for your 4 years of service.
You bet.
6 years?
4.5.
4.5. Thank you.
I want
It
to,
seems like 6.
I want to say thank you to, I mean, I've heard horror stories of what people have done to councilmen in disagreements and stuff. I have had nothing but cordial conversations. I mean, civil conversations. They were downright nice sometimes, even disagreeing. I don't know if because I'm such a nice person they act that way, or...
I'm sure that's it.
Yeah. Or maybe because they know I'm a minister and they don't use the kind of words. But anyhow, I just want to say thank you to everyone, and that's the way it should be. We can disagree, but we should be able to get along and have a good discussion. And I mean, this is the first time I've had something like this to this scale since I've been on. And it's nothing like what I've been told it would be. So thank you.
Anything from the council on my right?
I have a statement I want to make just here on my final day, that I want to start by thanking everyone here that is in attendance. It's this kind of engagement and this kind of discourse that keep communities like ours vibrant and progressive. Seeing and really feeling the passion for the place we call home is something that I truly, truly appreciate. And I won't lie, I'm going to be glad to be on that side of the passion from now on. But in my 4.5 years of service at Sheldon, I've gained some new friends right here. Some unfortunate enemies. They're not all as nice as they are to preachers as they are to computer salesmen. And I've a healthy respect for what it takes to keep our town strong. I moved here when I was 19, and in those days I was counting the ceaseless hours until someone or something would take me away from this place that always seemed to smell like fried chicken. As I grew and as I matured, I've grown to understand the true value of being part of a community. This is a far cry from the 66,000 person town that I was from the Thanksgiving dinners that I received at the radio station from these little old adopted grandmas that I didn't know I had, to like the neighbors that took care of our home when me and my wife were bringing our daughter into the world 6 weeks early, and taking care of our home and lawn, and did so unprompted. Now I'm grown, at least physically, and there's no place that my family and I would rather be than in Sheldon. And, that's not to say that we're perfect. We are far from it, but I truly feel that a collection of like-minded individuals, like those of whom I've had the pleasure of serving with, keep that flame burning bright as we start to enter into the unknown. We've heard stories this evening that remind us that we need to keep striving, that we need to keep communicating, and we need to be mindful and be aware. But it doesn't start here. It starts with you. I'm not a politician. I ran and I served because I felt it my duty to do so. But look at this council. We've got not one of the 3 open seats this time around was contested. We've got 4 of the 5 people up here that are on multiple terms and continue to do so because no one else is stepping up. And I understand the reasons. Meeting time doesn't work. I don't like public speaking. I don't like people. I don't want to be able to go to a restaurant with my family and not have someone say, "Sorry to bother you while you're eating, but..." To which I say, if not you, then who? And if not now, when? It doesn't have to be sitting here. It could be at church. It could be at school. On one of the many boards and committees that have openings. Celebration Days, Relay for Life, Avenue of Flags, Rise Fest, the list goes on and on. These organizations, these committees, events cannot run without you. And it's these types of events that make Sheldon what it is. A really nice place. A city full of marigolds. A place where families come first. And a place that I am damn proud to call home. Thank you. God bless you. Merry Christmas. I will make the motion to adjourn.
Hold on.
Oh my gosh.
Make the motion go in closed session. I think that's next.
I have one thing I'd like to share, a couple actually, but first, Greta's here. We walked in together. I asked her if she was here to plug Live Healthy Iowa. Enrollment is open. It will be going on at the college. I participated for the last few years. It's a good incentive to get out there and get a little more healthy. So she would welcome more teams, more people. If you're looking to get healthier, give it a try. It works. It's a 10-week program, and it really is a lot of fun. They do a lot of goodness. So, if you certainly may, if you want to plug it, I will if you do it quickly. Yes, there we go. So, and yes, thank you again all for coming. It's been a good meeting, and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and we'll see you again next year. Now, a motion to move to closed session.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Eggers.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
All right.